All right, we're back going into week 9 of the high school football season. I got the guru, Chris Hughes, here. Chris is all ready to get warmed up on the games of the week. So let's get right to it. Chris's Corner.
All right, guys, I'm going to bring the energy early tonight, starting here week 9, one of the big weeks of the season. Got a lot of big rivalry games taking place. We see it right there, top of the sheet. Pisgah 6-1 going to Tuscola. I know that Tuscola is 3-4, but that is the best rivalry, in my opinion, in the state of North Carolina, the Battle of Haywood County. The 50-50 raffle is worth the price of admission, so go up there to Haywood County, check it out. I promise you, you will not be disappointed. But let's look down the list of some big games. So you got West Forsyth and Davie County. That was a game that I thought was going to have a whole lot of luster, but both of them were coming off losses, so not quite the battle that we expected it to. But for you guys that like a lot of offense, check out Davie County quarterback Ty Miller. This young man's already threw for 2,034 yards, 23 touchdowns. He's got 6 receivers, mark it down, 6 receivers that already have double-digit receptions. So that's a big team. I do want to talk about one of the big linemen. He gets a lot of pancake blocks. Desmond Miller. This is one of the best linemen I've seen. I want to throw a lineman out there. We don't get enough of those meat eaters on the show. Moving down the list, Cuthbertson at Porter Ridge, that Union County football, we keep talking about it. It's just big time. I know we got to go quick tonight, so it's like the super lightning round. Concord at Northwest Cabarrus. The one thing I want to talk about is that defense for Northwest Cabarrus. The defensive coordinator, Santana Loudermilk, he has been phenomenal, shutout after shutout after shutout. That team has 92 tackles for loss. By the way, the national average for losses, tackles for loss on the season is 23. They've had 31 sacks. I think they've created 14 fumbles. So that Northwest Cabarrus defense is legit. You see them creeping up close to the top 10 rankings. Moving down the line, we see Greensboro Dudley going up to Rockingham County, to Wentworth to take on Rockingham County. Rockingham County, their head coach, Brad Baker, he's very familiar to us here in the Charlotte area. Used to be the head coach over at North Mecklenburg, longtime coordinator at Mooresville. His son, by the way, Bryce Baker, is the quarterback. This is an incredible young man, 6 foot, 195 pounds. He also starts at strong safety. He's got a 4.4 GPA. He's got, I think, like 600 yards rushing, 900 passing already on the season, accounted for about 14, 15 touchdowns. So go check them out. But by the way, Greensboro Dudley, we know Coach Stephen Davis. That is probably the most disciplined team I've seen ever. You don't make a mistake against them, because they're going to capitalize on it, and they're going to put you behind 2 or 3 scores really quickly. Looking down the list, we got Oak Grove at Ledford, 7-0 Ledford, Oak Grove. You could throw a rock between those 2 schools. They're so close. They got a great, the Grizzlies, the Oak Grove Grizzlies, they like to bear down up there. That's their motto. They got 2 young men in the backfield that is as good as you see, Connor Creech and Carson Williams. Ledford running back, Alex Sanford, he's already got like 2,300 yards, 1,200 yards. He's averaging about 200 yards a carry. Big-time game breaker, showstopper. And then finally, the big game I want to talk about is Pinecrest going over to Tate Stadium to play Scotland County. Both teams coming into this game 7-0. We know how big those battles get down there in the Sand Hills area. Zay Jones, I know Grice has talked all about him on the year. Zay Jones is unstoppable. He's rushing for, I think, 211 yards a game. But Nick Edens, he came down from Crest. That Pinecrest team, they're really good. They're loaded. They don't make a lot of mistakes. They spread the ball around. They got a couple receivers that I really like. Elijah Melton, I think, has 28 yards or 28 receptions, and they got a deep threat who can take it to the house on any play. Ricardo Mercado. Let's try to say that about 16 times and see how you go. Incredible. And then, the other game, I know we're short on time, but, you got those big rivalry games going up in the mountains. The Toe River rivalry up there in Mountain Heritage. We love going to that stadium. Been to it several times. It's kind of way down in a gorge. I love that one. And then, of course, Murphy and Swain. We keep talking about it week after week after week. That Smoky Mountain Conference, it's incredible.
That is a really fast blow through the big games. Let's jump right into your rankings, Chris. 8-man looks pretty much the same as last week.
Yeah, no change whatsoever in the 8-man football. Again, Wayne Christian, Rocky Mountain Academy, Halifax, Arundel Parrott, and then John Paul II in Greenville. Those seem to be the top dogs in the 8-man. And then, again, not a whole lot of change in the 11-man private school as well. Of course, we've got the 2 big dogs up top, and we're talking about Providence Day and Raven Gap. They're phenomenal football, and I think we got a good game.
Let's talk about the 1A public schools.
1A public schools, again, not a whole lot of change, but take a look there at that drone team. I can keep telling you, drone's a problem. Drone's a team that I think is going to cause a lot of trouble for our Mount Airy or Robbinsville in the West. Again, I've seen Robbinsville with my
Is
own eyes.
Mount Airy a top 10 team, period?
Oh, Mount Airy is not a top 10 team in this state, but they are best of the best in 1A football. But again, Grice, he's nodding his head. He'll talk about it. It ain't apples to apples when it comes to 1A football. They'll go in there and they'll skin up another 1A team. It's not the same. And then again, look at the 2A. And, there's about 20, 25 teams that I think are close to top 10 recognition in the 2A. I've got some teams like Craven. Don't forget, you got Shelby. You got Wallace Rose Hill, who are some dogs down there just on the outside looking in. East Gaston, who we've talked a lot about. But again, not a whole lot of movement right there. These are some real teams that I think are going to go in the deep rounds. Don't forget about that Burns team. I know the Burns Bulldogs are as good as it gets in 2A. I know they got a couple losses, but heck, look at who they played. Kings Mountain, Crest. They've played the best of the best in 3A.
Got a big game this week with East Gaston. Sam, you dropped a little bit in 3A. Are you mad?
I don't know why we would drop, but it's all.
He didn't drop far. 2 spots. 2 spots.
I don't like the number 6, so you might as well drop us back down to 7, or let's move up to 5.
Where are you going to finish though, Sam? Is the question.
You'll see at the end of the year, brother.
At the end of the year, Creston Dudley in West Charlotte, Kings Mountain at West. That's a monster.
Absolutely.
In the 3A.
Absolutely. And I saw Sam's team with my own eyes Friday night. That West Charlotte team, they are phenomenal. But again, I think that also speaks volumes for the defense that Huff has. Came away very impressed with both of them. You see Huff firmly established right here in the top 10 rankings in the 4A. Again, Grimsley, Butler. By the way, Rollsville, I moved them a spot over Weddington. They just continue to impress me. Of course, they had that victory over Butler early in the season. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, maybe I'm sleeping a little bit on this Rollsville team, but they have a lot of talent. We talked a little bit about them last year.
The team that come out of the East for sure.
Yeah, Grace, any surprises here, Grace?
Well, don't forget Independence is in it.
I don't think there are any surprises here, and I think you look at even talking in the Charlotte area, these conferences, that Butler Independence game at the end of the year. You never know how that game's going to go. I think that could be a game that could be a touchdown game. We're seeing that Justin Little's Justin Little's getting in that space he was last year right at the perfect time. So I think these last couple 2 to 3 weeks are really going to shape this, and you could see some of these teams in that 1, 2, 3 spot that could very well be at the bottom.
All right, Grace, time to take a break. What should people do?
People, hey, we got more to come. Again, Coach versus Coach, Grace's Game of the Week. But before we get there, be sure you take a drink of that Deer Park water.
Deer Park is celebrating its 150th anniversary.
Deer Park? That's good water.
You can taste how pure Deer Park is.
Deer Park, that's good water.
Deer Park, that's still good water.
All right, guys, let's take a look at some of the key Charlotte games. Cam, East Gaston, best season in school history, going to play Burns, an established power. What's going to happen?
Time for a little bulletin board material. This is where East Gaston's undefeated road ends. I think Burns is going to win this game. Chris already mentioned, their 2 losses are only to Crest and Kings Mountain, 2 powerhouses in 3A. Burns has talented quarterback and running back tandem of Ben Mooney and Jeremiah Norris. Both stat sheet stuffers. I think Burns gets it done.
Gary, Huff at Mallet Creek, 2 powerhouse defenses. What gives?
Mallet Creek has improved immensely on offense since they started their preseason slump. Offensively, Huff broke out of an offensive slump against West Charlotte. So it ought to be interesting. We know they both have good defenses. Huff has that kicking game. Be interested to see, can Mallet Creek throw the conference into a 3-way tie all the way around. But if Huff wins, they control the road to the conference championship.
Okay. Butler, Charlotte Catholic. This is somebody's last chance to really get at Butler before they get the independence. Dale, what do you see?
Wow. Tough game for Charlotte Catholic. Even though it's at home, great place to play football. Both teams, great defense as far as allowing points. Both have put up a good many points. Looks like Butler's put up a few more. I think Catholic's going to have to play their best game period of the season to have a shot in this ball game. But don't count them out at Kiefer.
All right, Ken, take me back to Union County. You have any more bulletin board material for Sun Valley and Weddington?
Absolutely, Sun Valley. I think their undefeated season comes to an end here when they play a Weddington team that's had just a brutal strength of schedule, playing several top teams, including the South Carolina Power and Dutch Fork, although they're having a bit of a rough year this year with some injuries. But what can be said about Tyler Budge? It hadn't already been said for the quarterback for the Warriors. Just a great quarterback. Both teams played solid opponents, but I think Weddington's stronger strength of schedule is going to really show through.
All right, now it's time for the game of the week, and it's time for Grice is Right.
All right, one of my favorite games of the year. Again, Providence Day and Charlotte Christian. I swear they could walk to the other school to play the football game. It's going to be a great game. I think, we've seen Christian already face Raven Gap. We know Providence Day usually gets them at the end of the year. So for Christian, it's kind of last chance saloon if you want to take advantage, set yourself up in this conference and really get that 1 seed in the playoffs. But let's get right to some of the keys here. Of course, this is the crazy thing to say. It's tough, but can the defense pressure Jaden Davis into a mistake? He threw his first pick actually last week versus Country Day, and I mean, I don't think that I think that's the biggest shocker of the game, much less the actual game that he had. But Charlotte Christian is definitely going to have to put some pressure on him, try to make it uncomfortable for him, try to really force him to have to get the ball, out of there, be rushed to do that. So, Cross Killen, we've had him on Fresh Faces, and LJ Porter, and of course, Bryce Young. These guys on defense are going to have to be aggressive. They're going to have to put him in uncomfortable situations, because when we see Jaden Davis stay in that pocket with no pressure, it's lights out. So that, without question, they've got to put some pressure on him and got to force him, or try to force him into a mistake. Christian's going to have to use their firepower to stay in it. We've talked on the Providence Day, and we talked ad nauseum about Jordan Shipp, about Shannon Goodwin. Now you've got the running back Klein that's come in, that's really given them a balanced attack here. But Christian can use their firepower. They have running back Ryan Henley, who was there last year, who can run the ball and catch it out of the backfield. We know about all-world athlete Micah Gilbert. He's a guy who needs to get that ball in his hands 10 to 15 times at minimum. We saw in the Raven Gap game, I think he had 9 catches for about 120 and a touchdown. He's got to get more, in my opinion, in this game. You want to look and see Micah Gilbert. Again, they're going to have to ice bath award. I think it's Sam Griner calls it, but he's going to have to get that. Christian's got to control the ball to keep the offense off of the field, though. That's going to be the key thing here. We know that Providence Day offense is explosive. They're going to have to do different things they can to slow this game down, to get the ball in Ryan Henley's arms, have them get run the ball. We had an average 5.2 yards per carry against Raven Gap. They were actually, we know they're a tough defense. They're a big team. If they're able to kind of keep that average against this tough Providence Day defense, maybe they can slow this down, keep their offense off the field, and really make it interesting. This regular season game, Langston, you know better than I. The regular season game is always interesting here. We said it last year. We said it before, where we thought, oh, no way, it's going to be close. And then it gets interesting. This regular season matchup I've seen through my studies of the history has been tricky.
Well, we got a quick segment here from Jaden Davis talking about playing the school down the street. We're going to drop that. And on the backside of that, we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with the Mack Brown interview.
I've still got to make my determination for game of the week. I'll have it again by the time this airs. But let's talk about that big-time game, Providence Day versus Charlotte Christian. Talk about your opponent, Charlotte Christian, what you think they're gonna provide, or what they may do, and just how you see the game, I guess preparing for them and your path to victory.
Yeah, for sure. Obviously, it's a rivalry that goes back far beyond my time, honestly. School down the street week, that's the week that everybody looks forward to, whether you're on that side or our side. Each day in practice leading up to the game is full go, whether that be in a meeting. We just got out of team meetings now, whether that be a walkthrough or Tough Tuesday, as we call it, where it's full padded, full practice, and you're going at it. So we know what's on this game. We know it's a battle of the Big South championship. We know it's bragging rights for who owns Sardis Road. And we know, how we handled them in the state championship last year. They're going to look for some advantage as well. So we're just making, it about us. It's up to our standard, and we're not making it about anybody else. Each week we go into it preparing the same way, and obviously there's a lot of hype around this game because of the rivalry. But at the end of the day, we just need to do us. So.
Deer Park is celebrating its 150th anniversary. Let's take a look back.
Deer Park, that's good water.
You can taste how pure Deer Park is.
Deer Park, that's good water.
Filtered naturally beneath the earth for a crisp, refreshing taste.
Deer Park.
Deer Park.
Deer Park. Deer Park.
That's still good water.
After 150 years, there's only one thing left to say. Deer Park, that's still good water.
How did you all get in here?
All right, guys, we got Coach Mack Brown, the man of the moment. Coach, right now, you guys are off to a phenomenal start. What's been the secret to 5-0?
I think an older team that gets it, and they're playing hard, they're playing well together, that they don't panic. We've got probably the best staff I've ever been around. We've got a lot of experience, and they're all working good together. We're playing complementary football. We've played tough teams. We've played 5 hard teams, and we've had hard games. But the guys just keep finding ways to win.
Chris, go ahead.
Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was up. Hey, Coach, appreciate you coming on board. Again, the 5-0 start is a great start for the Hills. You mentioned the older team. You know, I wouldn't be remiss if I didn't mention Tez Walker finally getting able to play this past Saturday. He had a half a dozen or more catches. I thought he looked really good, and I know that you guys must be thrilled. The teammates had to be thrilled to have one of their players back in the fold. Just tell me how that went and just your thoughts, I guess, your reaction to finally getting him back on the gridiron.
Chris, I feel like that my job as the coach is to make sure that every player on our team is treated like I would want my son or my grandson to be treated. I even hire coaches and tell them, I want you to coach your players like you would want your son or your daughter to be coached. And so if you feel like they've been treated unfairly, you've got to step up and you got to make sure that everybody understands that, or then I'm a fraud. And it had nothing to do with the NCAA. It had nothing to do with outcry. It had something to do with being who I am and telling our players this is wrong, and we're going to fight, and we're going to fight hard. And a lot of really smart people and good people in the whole state of North Carolina stood up for this young man that couldn't stand up for himself. And that's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. So I've never been more proud than to see a young guy live his dream on Saturday. And here's a guy that was told Friday night before the game with South Carolina in Charlotte, when 30 members of his family and friends had tickets, that he couldn't play.
Coach, did you worry about the backlash, Coach, for taking such a strong stance? I mean, shame on you, NCAA. Did you worry about that at all?
No, Langston, I was worried more about what was fair to him. This isn't about me. And this wasn't about the NCAA. This was totally about him. And I felt like I've never come out that strong about anything, really. And I felt like I should, because you can't say you're going to do something and not do it. And I thought he didn't play at Central. He's a one-time transfer. So come on, man. This thing's too simple. Let's do it right. And I understand the NCAA really has a problem because they let too many play. But now you're not letting any play, and there's probably something wrong with both of those. We still need a waiver system. We got to have some common sense. And I just wanted to bring to light for a lot of kids across the country that maybe have been treated unfairly. We can't do this. We need to be fair to kids. And they're talking about rules and process. I'm talking about mental health. I'm talking about what's best for a young person that I'm responsible for and that I encouraged to come here because I thought it'd be a no-brainer, he'd be eligible. So he's told no. So I worry about him the night before South Carolina. He's told no Thursday afternoon before App State. So he's crushed. So then he decides he's going to stay in school. He decides he's still going to play football, which we were worried about. But then he's on the scout team. And he's on the scout team for 3 weeks. So we don't want to tell him they're looking at it again because we don't want him disappointed again. So we got to be really careful here. So Thursday we call him, and he doesn't even know what we're calling him about, and say, come on over. And then we tell him he's eligible, and I've never seen a bigger smile. And it was kind of like, are you sure? Don't hit me with this now. It's real, because it's not real. And then we had to run him downstairs to get with Lonnie Galloway as a coach and start talking about game plan because he'd worked with the scout team for 3 weeks. And then you have to start thinking, well, is he safe to play mentally because he's had so much going on? And then you can't start him because he hasn't practiced, and that's not fair. We're 4-0, and guys have been playing really well. So what do you do? How do you figure all this out? So we had 2 days. We didn't have another practice. We had a walkthrough. So here's a young guy, and we thought he should carry the North Carolina flag into the stadium just to say thank you. to the state of North Carolina for everybody standing up for him and fighting for his rights. And then our fans were unbelievable, just cheering him. And I thought, I'm not sure I could have handled all that emotion, but he did really, really well. And when we said, "Now you're not going to start," he said, I got it. I shouldn't start. And then he was open for a touchdown, and Drake threw it to Nate McCullum, who got tackled at the one. And I said, what's wrong with Drake? He said, "Coach, we got it to the one. We scored a touchdown, man. That's all that matters." So he is a wonderful young person that I just couldn't be happier for. And it brought tears to my eyes watching him stand in the middle of the field after that game with his family taking pictures. Life's dream, bucket list, all those things check the box. And I applaud the NCAA. I was hard on them. I applaud them for changing, because that's not easy to do either. And they did what was right. And the right thing was for that young man to play.
Right. All right, Deb.
Yeah, Coach. First, I think you actually could have been tougher on them. Maybe you showed a little grace in not throwing a bomb at the NCAA, but I think what you did was great for the kid, and I think it's great to see the kid. Me not being, or me being this old man, I love to see kids achieve their dreams. That's why I'm so involved in high school athletics, to see kids, be able to reach their dreams. So it is a good thing what you've done there. Wanted to, if we can, skip over to high school, and wanted to get your thoughts and see what you know about what's going on with us here in North Carolina with the NCHSAA. Have you noted the change to our legislature taking over control, and how do you see that possibly impacting high school sports?
Dale, I'm like you. I'm old school, and I want an association that is involved every day and cares, and I want people involved with our sport that know exactly what's going on. I'm worried even in college that we're making rules with people who don't live it every day, and we've taken the coaches and athletics directors away from the game, and we're making rules that there are consequences, and we're not sure what those consequences are. So I really believe all of us need to have more common sense in what we're doing, and make sure that we slow down, make sure that we take a deep breath. And when we're making a decision, ask those who live it every day, their opinions at least, so we'll have an idea about what happens. When we threw NIL out there were huge consequences, and nobody understood it. We didn't know what we were doing. And then you throw transfer portal out there like we did, and NIL and transfer portal together were a disaster. They just collided, and then you've got tampering and all these other things that happen. And now NIL starts drifting to agents. We've been telling boosters not to pay kids forever, and now we're trying to get money to collectives to pay kids. And then we've said no agents. North Carolina got in trouble for having agents, and now we're saying you got to have an agent. So it's really confusing the last couple of years. And then you add high school to it, and then you start looking at the administrative side of high school and NIL. What does that mean? And if we continue across the country to say this state can do it and this state can't do it, we're not going to have continuity. We have got to get a consistent basis of the way we rule things in college athletics and in high school athletics across the board. And we have to look at what's best for these young people's mental health. We're losing more kids right now than ever before to alcohol and drugs and mental health that are hurting themselves. And we got to think about that now. We're putting too much pressure on these young people. And to me, that's where we've got to start. Let's start with what's best for them, and then let's work back to all this other stuff. And if Congress is going to be involved, if they're going to be involved, that's fine. But let's have Congress across the country involved, and let's start getting people that have knowledge of the sports to get involved with the politicians, so we make sure we're coming out with the right end.
Coach Brown, I could talk to you forever about the high school or about the transfer portal and how I feel like it's trickled down even into high school ball, and that's probably conversations we could have forever. But I really want to touch on kind of what Dale talked about with the NCHSAA, and one thing in particular that I know that you were very instrumental in. I know back in the late '80s, you were very hands-on with Charlie Adams in really being the catalyst to have the state championship games played at Keenan Stadium at that time. And then, of course, we've seen it expand over to Duke and Wake Forest and NC State as well. But how do you think that will affect the landscape of football when all of a sudden we have the potential now with the legislature taking over and the NCHSAA potentially, losing their authority to see championship games and things like that being forced back into the high schools? I feel like that's a huge step back for where we are as a state who's really been a standard bearer for other state associations in the country to all of a sudden go backwards.
Chris, I do too. We're right now across the board in our country, we're so about money. And we have to be really, really careful that we don't lose who we are. And if we say we're for student athlete welfare, let's quit saying it and show it. I don't listen to people anymore. I watch. I try to see what they're doing, not listen to what they say. And these kids love to come to college campuses to win their state championship. And that would be something I would hate to see go back to the high schools because they just wouldn't have that experience. A lot of the kids that play never get on North Carolina's campus. They've never been on a college campus, and they get to come and play in a huge stadium, and that's the ultimate for them. That's a life's dream, like we said. That's a bucket list. And when they're 40 and when they're 60, they're going to be talking about winning that championship in Keenan Stadium. And that would be different than it would be in their own high school stadium.
Agreed.
Yeah, absolutely. Coach, I want to talk to you about conference expansion in college. I was reading the other day they want to put like the top X 40 programs into one conference and do that. The ACC is transatlantic now. Just what are your feelings about an expanded ACC and then the future of all these super conferences and where North Carolina might fit in?
Langston, I'm again concerned that we're whether it's concerned or not, I see us headed toward an NFL model. I see us with NIL, they're going to have to get the salary caps. Do they start paying money to the players through the universities instead of collectives? Because unless we get some balance, some consistency in what we're doing and how people are paying, the schools that have the most money are going to be the ones that are playing all the time with all the best players. And that's where we're headed, and we're going to lose who we are. And then it's what you're talking about. We'll have instead of 32 teams or 3 with the NFL, we're going to have 40, and we'll have 2 leagues, and there'll be a North and a South, or an East and a West, and then you're going to have divisions, and the ones that pay the most money are going to play for the playoffs and the championship, and that's where we're headed, and then you're going to see some really good traditional programs right now that are going to become Group of 5 teams, and their fans not be satisfied and not see them. We're going to lose who we are with we're going to lose who we are with rivalry games, and we're going to lose so much of who we've been our whole lives. And again, as Dale said, I'm a traditionalist. I love this game. This game has been a huge part of my life. It's why I came back. I missed the game and missed the kids that play it and the coaches that coach it. But right now, I'm worried that we're not thinking enough about the players, enough about their parents being able to see them play with a lot of this East Coast, West Coast trying to play games. And then what about the fan base? We're asking fans for more than ever before, and I hate that for them. We're asking them for money to pay our coaches. We're asking them for money for facilities. We're asking them to buy season tickets. We're asking them to pay for parking. And now we're asking them to pay for 28 different sports with NIL. These guys are going to get caller ID and not answer the phone when we call, man. And then you're playing at Stanford, you're playing at Cal. What about the travel? What about them being tired? We got back from Pittsburgh at 4 a.m, and that was Pittsburgh. What if it was Stanford? And then we have to play the next week. You have to get up and work the next day. So, and what about your fan base? What is fair to them? So I hope this all settles down at some point, but I understand we have to have money. we have to have money to make it. I just think, again, we got to get those really smart heads together and try to figure out what is best for the game, and we can still make our money. What is best for the kids? We're losing what is most important to me, and that's the kids. And that's what this game's supposed to be about. And we're talking about student athlete welfare, but we're not showing it.
You being a traditionalist, I suspect you would like to see the ACC stick together and not break apart.
I would. I love the ACC, and I've been here 15 years. I love our game with State and Wake and Duke and Virginia Tech. That's why when they asked me about divisions, I wanted to keep the divisions because the fans love playing those games. The parents can all drive to those games. The kids can they get to see their high school coach gets to see them play. They're going to live here when they get through, and these games are really, really important. When they're 40, they're going to be talking about these games. So we're going to lose some of that, and I've got it. And then you play Miami every year. You stick Florida State in there, but let's and I like the fact that you could win a division and then a championship instead of just two teams that may be the best two teams that just play each other twice. And that's kind of what's going to happen if this continues to be on the same plane we're going.
Absolutely.
Coach, I've been thinking about this topic a lot, and I'm the guy that can remember back when Georgia Tech comes into the conference, and I'm thinking, wow, we're getting too far out there, and Florida State, and oh my gosh, and now we don't have Maryland around. The days of a Saturday morning drive up to the Triangle, to go see your team play, what experiences those were, and I don't like these super conferences. I really like and love the ACC. And I was going to ask you about this, and I think you've addressed it 100%. You're right in line with what I'm thinking. This is going to be, I think, bad for the sport, for college athletics.
I think that the sport is so powerful, Dale. It'll make it. It'll overcome whatever we do to mess it up. I've always felt like that because people love the game and kids love the game. And I have some of my friends say, I don't like the game anymore because it's not amateurism. These kids are getting paid. These kids are wonderful. They're the same kids before. They didn't ask to get paid. They didn't ask for the transfer portal to be open so they can get mad one day and leave 4 times. They didn't ask for any of this. We gave it to them. So the adults are the ones that need to wake up here, not the kids. And the game will be great. But I'm like you. I wanted to see Oklahoma play Nebraska. I grew up seeing that game. I wanted to see Texas play Texas A&M. I don't want the Carolina Duke and the Carolina State game to go away. I think that's important for fans. Fans wouldn't have anything to gripe about. They gripe about each other every day. Now they hate each other. Said they hate the other team more than they like themselves sometimes. But that's college sports. That's the rivalry. That's what we get. And I don't want to see those go away either. So I'm hoping that a bunch of really smart people are going to get together here. We all know it's a mess. We all know that it's out of control. And usually something has to get really bad before we fix it. So I think that we're bad enough right now that everybody understands it. Just about everybody's saying it. I guess I'm old enough, Dale, like some of these people, that I can say what I think. A lot of young coaches say, I can't believe you said that. And I said, I don't care anymore. I'm at a point where I can say what I think because I really am passionate about it and I believe it. And I don't care who gets mad. I don't sit up every morning and say, who's mad at me today? I don't care. But we've got to all pull together and do what's best for this wonderful sport because it affects so many young people's lives and people are so passionate about it. And I watched our game just walking out there, pulling into the stadium on Saturday with Syracuse and packed house and fans are everywhere and they're all wearing their gear and they got their little kids and there's a bell tower walk and everybody's high-fiving each other. Then you're bringing money into your little community and your students are all having a blast. It's a rallying point. And football is an amazing place to pull people together on your campus, and we can't lose that.
I agree, Coach. And Coach, I know you've been gracious with your time, and we appreciate you joining us here. I think collectively, Dale, Langston, myself, we kind of all consider ourselves kind of the older guys because we've been covering high school football here in the Carolinas for almost 20 plus 30 years. And we are all traditionalists in the sense that we know how important the high school game is. Now, I want to kind of pose this question to you this way, Coach Brown. We've talked a little bit about the transfer portal and NIL and really how I feel transfer portal has changed how the college football recruiting at the high school level is. And you see some schools going out and getting players from other colleges instead of the traditional high school route. Well, what I want to ask you, though, is one, how much importance do you still place on the high school game? I know that you have been, well above, you were one of the first coaches I remember that really put a premium on relationships with high school head coaches in the States and the high school programs. But how do you see how the transfer portal has affected, relationships with high schools and with the recruiting of kids from the schools versus, maybe cherry picking it from different institutions across the country?
Yeah. Chris, I was raised by a dad who was a high school coach and principal and a granddad who was the winningest high school football coach in Middle Tennessee history and the superintendent. So I was raised, I was on a bus when I was 4 years old with a little letter jacket riding to the game with my granddad. So that's what I love. I grew up, and high school coaches don't get paid near like we do. They are the most solid group of people in the world, and they do it because they love it, because they love helping kids grow, and they'll go pick up a kid at home and bring him to practice and feed him. And I mean, it's amazing what the stories that our high school coaches are doing. I'm really worried that so many coaches now, they're firing coaches too quickly. In my opinion, they're paying us too much and firing us too fast. And that's just what's happening. And because of that, it's not the college coach's fault, but they got to win. So it's easier to go get a player from another school that's older instead of taking a chance if you've got to win next year. So we're seeing people take 38 transfers, and I'm hearing my buddies that are high school coaches saying, Coach, I got 7 kids that would have been offered a scholarship 2 years ago that aren't being offered. And if they are being offered, it's being offered at a lot lower level, and the parents don't understand. They're frustrated at me. So there's absolutely no doubt. Now we're signing 25 high school guys. So we're trying to do it the traditional way with high school guys that want to be here, because we've also had to look at NIL differently, Chris. If a guy's going to be bought, then we're not in the game, because we're not going to cheat and we're not going to pay a lot of money to a kid that hasn't done anything in college. I don't believe in that. And then secondly, if they get here, if they were going to be bought in high school, but they decided not to take the money, if they come here and they're real good, they're going to take it here. So our pool is smaller because we're trying to find the guy with the really good parents that want to be at North Carolina, that want to get a North Carolina degree, and that's their NIL money on the back end. If our collective can give them a little money for playing good while they're here, none of these kids are going to make enough money in NIL for the rest of their lives. And right now, NIL is making some decisions for these kids instead of what's right, and that's frustrating the colleges. So why not take a transfer from East Tennessee State that I've seen start for 3 years, and I know he can come in and play immediately instead of taking an 18-year-old that's got to grow up, and I've got to hope he's a good player. That's what's happening, and I understand both ends of it. I understand the frustration on the high school level, but if a coach takes a job and he's in his second year and they're already talking about firing him, he doesn't have time to grow. He got to get it done today, and that's what's putting so much pressure on these coaches.
Yeah. Coach, I know you got to get out of here, and like Chris said, we appreciate your time, but I would be remiss if I did not ask you about Mr. May. Has he been as good, better than what you thought, and how good can he be?
He's absolutely better than I thought. He is unbelievable. He and Sam Howell both. We've been so lucky in our 5 years here. But Drake's competitive. He's smart. He's a gym rat. He'd been beaten up by those 3 older brothers. His dad raised him in camp since you all knew him when he was a young pup. And he loves to compete. He'll whip you in ping pong. He'll whip you in card games and gets mad if he doesn't. And that's the way it practices. We had open date before Syracuse, and he's a little banged up and sore. And I said, why don't you just do some drill work, but save your arm and take the week off. He said, Coach, I got to get better. Man, there's stuff I got to do. I can't take any time off. And that's just who he is. His main saying, which I love, is the main thing's the main thing, and the main thing is winning. I don't worry about anything else, Coach, but winning. And that's who he is. And very honestly, his touchdown to interceptions aren't as good as they were this time last year, but we're playing better teams. He's thrown for more yards this year than he did last year. He's the only quarterback in North Carolina history to complete over 70% of his passes in his first 5 games. And his QBR rating is better right now than it was at any time last year.
Coach, you've been part of some really, really good teams. Last question I'm going to ask you. And you've had that wonderkin quarterback before and won it all. How does this team compare to some of those teams? Does it have the guts of your championship teams? Could this team get to a college football playoff?
Langston, it can, and we're not ready yet. We got to keep growing. If every week's a test. Last week, people were talking more about Miami than they were Syracuse, and we played hard, and I liked it. We practiced hard. This team practiced hard 3 times for open week. I was surprised. Never seen that before. In fact, I was worried about them. They were having fun and laughing. They like each other, so you got to stay healthy. If you start losing people like we did last year at the end of the year, you can't be as good. Injuries, being lucky, and playing more people and staying fresh and being injury-free really helps you. So we got to be injury-free. We got to keep growing and running the ball so we can continue to do what we do. We got to play the deep ball better because our corners are the young guys on our team. And we're either great in the kicking game or awful. We got to get our punting straightened out. But yes, we've got the bones to be really good. We've got the leadership to be really good. I'm Cedric Gray's a Charlotte kid. Here I am. I'm running down to talk to him about the last 5 minutes of the half, and I get there, and Cedric kind of holds his hand up and said, I got it, Coach. And he's telling him everything I would have told him. And I said, thank you, God. This is what you want with your team. So this team has everything. So what I would say, Langston, is we got a chance. Got to keep growing. Got to keep getting better. There's so much parity because of the transfer portal. Everybody's pretty good. And we're seeing people beat people that you shaking your head. But how does Bowling Green beat Georgia Tech and Georgia Tech beat Miami? I mean, it makes.
Well, I know how Georgia Tech beat Miami. I do know how Georgia Tech beat Miami.
And then how does Duke beats Clemson? Clemson's a field goal away from beating Florida State. We think they're a playoff team. Notre Dame loses on the last play to Ohio State. Notre Dame nearly loses to Duke. So does that mean that Florida State, Clemson, Duke, Ohio State, and Notre Dame are all about the same? Who knows? Who knows? It's just crazy out there.
Crazy football. Well, Coach, thanks for your time. Appreciate you coming on with us today.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate all you do for so many kids. That's what people don't realize. You love the game. You've cared about kids your whole life, and that's what we're doing. Our job is to give back to these kids because they've earned it and they deserved it, and they're so hungry right now for us to help them, and I appreciate what you do.
Deer Park is celebrating its 150th anniversary.
Deer Park? That's good water.
You can taste how pure Deer Park is.
Deer Park, that's good water.
Deer Park, that's still good water.
All right, man, here we are, that time of day.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome.
All right, man, here we are once again, Coach versus Coach, going into week 9 of the 2023 high school football season. Again, I got Coach Grice, Coach Griner. We did the coin toss before the game. Coach Griner, as always, elects to defer. So, Coach Grice, here we go. First question up. We just had Mack Brown on the show, so let's talk about it. Tar Heels are off to the best start of their since 1997. Can the Tar Heels make a legitimate shot at the college football playoff?
No, guys, they can't. I think they're going to come across a better Florida State team if they do get to to the ACC championship game, which I do expect them to. Let me be very clear there. They got Miami coming up, but dang it, Miami can't figure out when to take a dadgum knee. That Coastal's atrocious this year. I mean, you go look through those teams. Virginia Tech, I think, already has gotten beat by Marshall. Virginia can't get right. Like we already talked about Miami. Granted, they just had to take a knee. They just had to take a knee.
Well, guess what? They ain't going to have an opportunity to take a knee versus Carolina because I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. They got Tez that just came back. He's running out there with the flag, North Carolina flag. It's just prime picking right now. I think that they have that elite receiver now that can go up to the third floor where other people still staying on the second. It's a different red zone target. He just got back practicing with those guys, getting after it. I think they can get to the playoff because I think that there's an opportunity they don't lose a game. A little trickiness with, like you said, Florida State's definitely a dominant team. Clemson can always be tricky. Those type of teams, whoever makes it on the other side. But I think they can go undefeated. And if they go undefeated, they will be in the playoff.
Yeah. If they beat Clemson on the road, take notice. All right, go on question number 2 here. Coach Griner coming for you, coach versus coach. The Panthers are 0-5. Could they become NFL's first 0-17 team?
Yes, they definitely can become the first 0-17 team. There's no doubt about it. I hate to say it, but they are the worst team in the NFL. And guess what? If we are the worst team, we will be giving away the number 1 pick overall. And just sad to see we could have got we could have done this and maybe got a good pick at 9. And then maybe he would have got injured or something. We would have got on the following year. Then we would have got Caleb Williams and wouldn't have to get up 5,000 draft picks to get what we got. Now, I love Bryce Young. He's going to be fine going forward. But our team is a disaster right now. It's like I want to put a bag over my head while I'm watching. It's disastrous.
Nah, let's be clear. They're going to find a way. It's the NFL. They can get it right. I think what you're going to see is that Dalton will probably get a run in there. I think he'll probably get that opportunity. And as he gets comfortable, you got the Texans on the schedule, Griner. You're beating the Texans.
5 games.
You got an opportunity. I won't go that far.
No,
I think you might
Texas,
get 1 or 2 to kind of stave off that ultimate, season of infamy. I guess instead of the undefeated season, the defeated season. I think they'll get that one versus Texas.
You're definitely not winning that one because CJ Stroud's gonna have a chip on his shoulder because he wasn't picked overall number 1. Watch.
Okay, let's wrap it up here. Coach versus coach. Coach Grice, sticking with you. What's your biggest worry about high school sports when the NCHSAA has a reduced role?
Yeah, actually, I thought about this a good bit as we were talking today. Of course, Langston sent the script over. And I think for me, people are so focused about not liking the NCHSAA that I think they miss, I guess, the element of that. I always think about, nobody likes the refs. When you talk about a football game, but it's very few times people don't like them because they think they're biased. They may think whether they do a good or bad job. You look at that and the oversight of those things. But at the end of the day, the NCHSAA is in the place to do what's best for everyone. At times that may go against Charlotte and may have situations where we don't like it. At times that may go against the East or things that they don't want. But I think that the NCHSAA, for whether you like them or hate them, has done a great job in trying to appeal and do things for everybody, free of political affiliation, free of undermine agendas or anything of that sort. And so I think that when you politicize it, when you put a certain special interest group of people who are trying to get the NCHSAA out of the paint, trying to get them out of a situation of influence and being, governance over sports, you leave this to always leave someone out. And whenever you do that and have special interest involved in this, it never ends well for one part. And I don't know who that's going to become. I think if they do get their wish, we'll see very clearly what the play is here. But that's my worry is that, hey, again, you may not like it, but the NCHSAA does everything they can to try to be in an unbiased position.
All right, so like Grice says before Grice's Gems, his officials, his Twitter is was it 8J Grice? What did you say it was? We'll go ahead and say that so they can hit you up about the officials. See, I'm not going to say anything like that. What I can say is I'm not worried at all about it because the NCHSAA will still be involved in all the things you're worried about. I don't think they're going to take a hand in that. I think that the things that were in those gray areas we need to be looked at, the legislative aspect will take over and maybe help the situation. We're talking about a 10% difference. When you have one party that's the jury, they make all the decisions, they are making all the rules, there's no one to justify certain things. You need a third party sometimes. I think that's all we're coming in to try to do, so I'm not really worried at all about the situation.
All right, man.
All right, that's another great Talking Preps episode. Sam, you got the final word. What is your
I
final
do.
thoughts?
Final thoughts. Big shout out to the coaches' wives out there. You know, I never realized how much you guys do, or ladies do, until my wife's going to be going to Raleigh for a few days. I'm like, oh my goodness, like I got to pick up the kids. I got to do this. I got to make sure they get to school okay and have dinner ready. And I'm like, and still have all the support after I'm bringing home so much drama from game to game. So big shout out to all the coaches' wives out there. I appreciate what you do.
All right. Well, guys, it was a nice show this week. Thanks, Coach Brown, for coming on. We'll catch you next week. That's Sam Grinder. It's John the Grice, number 2 voice of high school football. That's the Guru, number 1 voice of high school football. Gary, the CMS coach. Dale, the historian. And the Get, Cam, the Guru in training. I'm Langston, and we are Talking Preps.